Welcome to the Edition Wars podcast, where we take a deep dive into the mechanics and playstyles of all of the editions of our favorite game. We're going to look at what worked, what didn't work, what led to better games, as well as what got left by the wayside because it didn't lead to a better game. Anyway, we're going to talk about it all, and in this episode, we are discussing the 3.5 edition Unearthed Arcana book. This is episode 6 of that deep dive, and we are on chapter 6 about campaigns.
Surely, Sam, it's only episode 3. We said this is going to be a 3-episode series.
That's right.
We would never run over.
Yes, of course
madness.
Not. No. What do you think about chapter 6, sir?
Well, so this is some additional rules modules. And, I mean, the first most fascinating thing about it is how many of these do actually show up in the 5e DMG. In some cases, it's the most problematic ones, but it's fascinating that this book survives in that form sort of across editions. Mm-hmm. I want to say that some of this is going to get reworked in the 3rd edition DMG2. I don't have that book in front of me right now to tell you about whether I'm right or not, but I think I am. But we'll go through where some things definitely show up, and we'll try to hit that. So first off, we have contacts, and I guess they left their contacts on the cutting room floor. That's a problem. You're crawling down looking for your contacts, right?
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you're blind, there. Right?
Yeah. And so, like, they talk about the different types of contacts. That's pretty cool. I like the idea of having NPCs that you care about in some way on your character sheet. I think that's just some extremely basic but useful game tech. Like, if that NPC is in some way a stat, then you're invested. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. This section is one of those where I look at it and I say, it's like one page. It's not an enormous waste of space, but it's one of those things where I just sort of say, okay, it's nice to have something stated that is a decent idea, but nothing special. I mean, for me, I've been running games for a long time. This type of thinking about how PCs can have different types of contacts in their lives. I've been thinking about this sort of thing for a long time.
Yeah,
sometimes it's nice to just see it written out and to see it sort of formalized. And so then someone who hasn't thought of that, maybe this is a little bit new for them, or maybe just codifying it this way is a little bit new. So I think it's worthwhile, but it's not anything spectacularly new and fantastic that I feel like,
For sure. I mean, remembering to include skill contacts, that's something that I think a reasonable GM could look past and forget to like include. Oh, but that's sages. Of course it is. That's smiths.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so a lot of your skill contacts are also going to be information contacts or influence contacts in some way. Mm-hmm. But then we get to obtaining contacts, and they lose me pretty hard. I really don't like it being a level progression thing. I think that makes me uncomfortable, because these characters who are supposed to be such an important part of the narrative just aren't, because you meet them and you don't get to grab them as a contact until you gain what might be as much as 5 more levels.
Well, and look at who that 5th level, getting your first contact at 5th level, that applies to barbarians, druids, monks, rangers, and wizards.
That's a mess to me.
Like, are you telling me that a ranger doesn't have any contacts? Like, real substantial contacts until their 5th level? I don't think so.
Right. And
I mean,
Well, and like I get me giving bards lots and lots of context. That's fine.
Sure.
It's just I wonder if it is going to feel like lots and lots of context to have 10 defined contacts in 20 levels of play. Like based on my experience, that could be anywhere from 60 to 100 sessions of play. Does that actually feel like a lot? Maybe not.
Well, and why
And
should
certainly, like the people in column D, the people that no one wants to meet, I guess. Getting 4 is just, ugh.
right? Well, I take exception to the cleric and paladin and rogue, the whole column B.
Yeah,
I mean, all three of those classes, theoretically, those classes, cleric, paladin, and rogue, they require contacts in every place they go. This is one of those things about playing my favorite class is a cleric in pretty much every edition that I play, just
sure.
because I like the concept of the cleric.
Yeah,
And what I often tell people when they think clerics are boring, or when a DM doesn't know how to give their cleric the spotlight or whatever, my advice is to tell them that cleric, whenever they go somewhere new, the first thing they're going to be doing is looking for a temple or shrine to their deity. They're going to look for their people.
for sure.
And then they're going to find out who is in that town that opposes their deity. And no matter what the real reason, no matter what the group reason that they are in that town, no matter what that reason is, that cleric always will have a secondary, focus, a
Yeah,
secondary priority of trying to fix the temple of their deity in that town as, being a place of importance in that town. And that automatically is going to grant the ability for that DM and that cleric, and the rest of the party for that matter, to help that cleric gain contacts that could end up being very influential, could end up, being these three categories: skill contacts, influence contacts, information. I mean, like, I understand what they're doing with this section, but I get that they're trying to formalize it in a way that, this progression with the first main contact not coming until third level for that cleric. Like, I get what they're saying. It doesn't mean the cleric doesn't know anybody before
yeah,
third level, but this just is not how I run my game.
yeah. I feel you. Well, and I mean the other huge problem with contacts is really essential to campaign model. It really assumes that you have a home base that you know about from early in the campaign,
Right.
and you're going to keep coming back here and maybe having adventures in that settlement. That works in some campaigns, but I wouldn't go so far as to say all of them. Maybe most. Most might be fair. Hard to know. I have no idea what most campaigns look like.
Right.
I mean, your criticisms of Descent into Avernus aside, we can definitely say that a system like this would serve no function there.
Right.
Because you leave Prime completely. All right?
Yeah. And you go to a place where you basically can, your initial assumption should be no one in the plane where I'm at right now is an ally, no matter what.
Yeah. So, okay, Tyranny of Dragons, it doesn't help until you get to Rise of Tiamat. And then you need to pick pretty carefully because it might or might not work out. I actually don't know about Princes of the Apocalypse. I'm very confused on how that one runs. Out of the Abyss? All that Underdark time, you say?
Yeah. What you mean when you start out captured and you immediately make 10 friendly contacts?
Right. Well,
you can trust them, and they wouldn't be, yeah, I get your point.
but then you get to the surface where you could meet someone, and then you go back to the Underdark.
You turn around and go right back. Yeah.
Well, assuming you play along with the campaign, which you don't want to do, but I digress. So Dragon Heist, it works fine, and in Mad Mage, it works fine if you're running the campaign in such a way the PCs keep leaving,
Mhm.
which is, I think, the better way to run it, but
I think it's the
not the
intended way.
one. It's hard to say. Like,
I think
looking at it,
no,
it's hard to
I
say.
think it is, because if it wasn't, then they wouldn't have the gates.
Yeah, I hear you. And they do
But
have
they
additional plot
but
hooks. It's
to your
just not
point,
enough plot hooks.
well, and but to your point, even though they have the gates, they actually don't encourage at any point in time. They might mention it in the front matter, but really, as you're reading through that product, it never says, "Oh well, after this, it's probably a good time for your party to refresh. You might want to suggest that they take a couple of gates up and then leave." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It's just not that's not how it works in reading.
Yeah,
How it works in play depends on the DM, and so if you don't give the DM that advice, well, I don't know how it's going to run.
yeah.
But back to this.
Back to
So
this.
here's the thing. When I read the little blurb here about the skill contacts, what I think of is heist. Not as in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, although that does apply, but I think of a heist because the time when your party wants a bunch of skill contacts is when you need very specific events to occur that the party cannot do,
Mm. Hmm. Yep.
right?
Yep.
That you need to hire. It's, I think of a Star Wars Edge of the Empire. Okay, we don't have a cyber geek in our party that can hack into the system and make a fake holocron and send it out and interrupt whatever data flow is happening for us to be able to do our job and not be spotted,
Yep.
right? So we need a skill contact to make the deal to get that done, or we need a skill contact to grab that information off of the net, so that, because we can't do that ourselves. That's a skill contact. And the same thing kind of can happen in D&D. Oh, I need a skill contact that can disable this very specific type of some piece of equipment because I don't know how to do it, but I need to get past that challenge in order to reach my goals.
Sure. Sure. And that's totally fair. Um,
But as you said, I mean, the reason I'm saying this is because it really does depend on campaign structure.
right. And if it depends on that, on having that contact to get to your goal, then I hope you have a bard in the party, because otherwise you might need to wait for 2 more levels to. Like, that's a
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we've
No, I
spent
agree.
way
Yeah.
too much on this.
On one page, yes.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, by all means.
So the next section is the reputation section, which is basically an honor system per se, that tells you about how the activities that your PCs perform / commit can cause them to have an increase in reputation or a decrease in reputation, can cause them to gain fame or infamy. Um, and it basically codifies that and provides you with a score, basically a reputation score, so that commoners, if you go to a new place, let's say, commoners will automatically possibly know about your exploits, or maybe not.
Yeah. I really like the idea of a reputation or fame score. I think that's a pretty great thing in principle.
Mm-hmm. And
And
I like their examples of the events that could be performed, or events that occur that the party's involved in that could actually increase
yeah,
your reputation score. Like, it gives specific examples, right? I like that. I like
yep,
that as a way to produce an RPG book. Give specific examples. That's perfect for me.
yep. Reputation score based on your class and level is not what I would do.
Right.
Don't
Yep.
like it.
Yep. Me too.
Um,
Me too. I have a problem with it because I think that
well, and
uh,
just having all of them except even listing commoner is a weird idea. Let me say that part. But
right.
um, having all the progressions top out at +5, they just get there within 4 levels of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Did anything interesting happen here? Like, what?
Right.
Why?
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah.
Like, if there
Yeah.
had been one
What's
more
the
level, at least
right?
column D would have been +6. But
Uh-huh.
this, yeah, it's not good.
Right.
That
Yeah.
like it
And
just winds up being a table of fiddly +1s
mhm.
to a skill check where the GM decides it applies.
Right.
The
Well,
way
and
I'm
then
seeing this kind of, sorry, I'm going to keep cutting you off. I
no, keep
didn't mean
going.
to. The way I'm seeing this idea being really fruitfully used these days is over in Swords of the Serpentine um, that Kevin Culp created, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of his co-creator. Um, um, and also in some stuff that Strash Ashimovich is working on. Um, and those are both being really like loose with the idea of what constitutes a tool.
It's
And so,
Emily Dresner, Kevin
thank you.
Culp, and Emily Dresner.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
pull that up off the dome.
Nope.
And so a reputation is a tool as much as a hammer is a tool. And so
Mm-hmm.
that might be a thing that you receive from a career in some of Strash's work. I haven't read Sword of the Serpentine to see exactly how it's deployed in that, but I know that's basically how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just think that's very smart, and ultimately it makes me wish that just the function of uh, tools in 5e were a little bit different, but that's fine.
I mean, so this is another section where I love the idea of it.
Yeah.
And I like the way that they talk about it, like
Yeah.
the sidebar specifically, the who's affected by reputation, and it talks about, being a low level or a high level character, and that even if you're a higher level or you have a decent reputation, going to someplace new, they might not know you. So at what point do they learn about you? That sort of thing. I like that conversation. But then, as you said, just having the reputation score cap out, or the benefit here cap out at +5, but then also basing things on level, and then making it so that a 1 point of reputation is that important. It's not granular enough, and at the same time,
Yeah.
it's sort of using a machete when you need a scalpel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to point out something about, I love these tables that these suggestions, the suggested reputation gaining events or whatever. They're great, except the first table is, if you handle this event successfully, you gain 1 point of reputation. Here's the
Right.
second table. If you handle it successfully, you gain a half a point of reputation. And the third one, if you handle these successfully, well, it's just not worth any reputation.
Right.
But
That's weird.
I mean,
That's weird.
but look, but some of these things in that list are. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be worth reputation. Number 80, a paladin, because it's on a percentage table. So,
Yep.
A paladin's quest for atonement leads her to a troll lair too well defended for her to tackle alone.
Yeah.
So presumably she goes back and gets help and goes and tackles it. I presume that that's worth 0 reputation because she couldn't do it on her own and she was supposedly on an atonement quest. But that's not just going to pop up out of the ether like it's something that just was there. If I was the DM and that was happening, there's a reason she needs to gain atonement, and there's a reason it's that specific troll.
Yeah. Well,
So going and getting the party and then defeating that creature would actually still gain her atonement.
well, so read 98 and tell me it's not literally the plot of Tyranny of Dragons.
Evil clerics gather in secret to summon a monstrous god to the world. Yeah, right.
No reputation?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What is happening?
That's what I mean. So so the thing is that we're looking at this table sort of as a snapshot kind of thing, because the very first thing it says after the end of that table, it says, from the above lists, it's clear that site-based adventures in which the PCs function as explorers don't usually earn reputation awards. So the thing is that like number 98, that the evil clerics gather in secret to summon a monstrous god through, the event that's occurring is that the party finds out about it, and that's what doesn't earn the reputation.
Yeah.
Right. And so the formatting and the way that this is presented is flawed. Even though I love that they give these examples of these types of adventures, but it's flawed the way that it's presented.
Also, worth note is number 61, which is the plot of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. the very loose plot.
And a bunch of other dungeon modules as well. Yes.
Well, right. Yes. That is, for our listeners, a wizard is buried in a trap-filled tomb with her powerful magic items. Congratulations. That's
right. Yes.
You have now summed up like certainly a solid 50% of D&D.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's fine. That's a perfectly good adventure. And if you seriously complete Mad Mage and still no one knows who you are, I'm so sorry.
Right.
But like,
well, but like I said, right, the actual thing that's worth 0 reputation is just learning about that. Oh, you got to Waterdeep and you learned about the Yawning Portal, and you know that it leads to Undermountain. Okay, well, that's not worth any reputation. Everybody in Waterdeep knows that.
Yeah. But like, I've been in a campaign where we did stuff for years and years of play, and it was big regional stuff that in principle saved whole cities from major incursions of bad guys. And then we went elsewhere in the same country, and we were, I don't know, some damn yabo. Just you want what? Get bent, right? Like, oh, I guess this is a campaign where I, as a high-level character, still have no reputation. Cool.
Right.
So, like, that's another thing that factors into my thinking about all this. Like, the more you lean on the numbers, the worse it's going to feel.
Right.
And mechanizing this isn't going to actually be great. Keeping it in the back of your mind as, yes, they've got a lot of reputation from that is wonderful. Quantifying it is going to break it.
Right. Well, and then that leads us to the next section, which is an actual honor system. So what I said earlier was that the reputation system is kind of an honor system because it's about how much reputation you end up getting for doing, for lack of a better term, honorable deeds in the eyes of the commoners who now look at you as someone worthy of a good reputation.
Right.
This honor system is actually a mechanical system where you track honor, and it's more than up to 0.5, right?
I'm just going to say we desperately need to get a music drop of "Don't give a damn about my bad reputation."
Yeah.
Sure, song licenses are expensive, but surely Jeff will break open the piggy bank for this key event in our podcasting careers.
Isn't there some rule about if you use less than 5 seconds or something? I don't know.
I definitely don't know.
I have no idea. I'm just making that up. I don't really know.
A 5-second rule would be very nice, though.
Yeah, there you go. So this honor system. So the first part of it is going to automatically rub some people the wrong way, because the first part of it is the idea that you have a starting honor score that is based on your alignment.
I am one of those people.
Yes,
I'm rubbed the wrong way.
That is why I mentioned that. Yep. And so a lawful good, for example, a character with a lawful good alignment, or any NPC or whatever with a lawful good alignment, is going to start with an honor score of 25, whereas someone who is chaotic evil has 0 and a neutral character has 10.
Sure.
So, and there are modifiers. If you have a hero among your ancestors, you automatically get a positive 2 bonus to that. And if you have someone who was a true failure in their community that is part of your ancestral lineage, then you take an automatic -2 for the ancestral failure. So you start with this basic honor score, and then you can earn honor or you can lose honor based on different activities that you perform through your adventuring career. For example, I'll give 2 examples of where you could earn honor and 2 examples of where you could lose honor. If you complete defeat an arch enemy, that is a +2 increase to your honor score. If you make a masterwork item, that is a +1. If you have a heroic death, that's a +10, but of course you just died. So to lose honor, you could actually break an oath. That would lose you 4 points of honor. You could own a dishonorable weapon or item, which could also be a cursed item. You also lose 4. If you refuse an order from your master, that could lose you 3. If you're taken prisoner, that's a -10, right? So your honor can go high or low based on varying fluid events that occur throughout an entire adventure, not based on the type of adventure itself, which is what the reputation system was trying to do, base it on the type of adventure. The honor score itself also has defined effects based on what your honor score is. So if your honor score is 20 or more, so on this table, of course, it says you get the previous 3 benefits, which I'll talk about in a second, and you get a +2 to your leadership score modifier because you have great renown. The previous 2 benefits were things like a +2 circumstance bonus to diplomacy, a +1 circumstance bonus to will saves. When the consequence of failing that save would bring dishonor to you, you have such a high honor that the power of your will gives you a bonus, right? So if you have very low honor, you get if you have, for example, this is an interesting effect. If you have an honor from -1 to -4, so very, very low honor, you get a +2 circumstance bonus on bluff checks if you're behaving honorably.
Well, when the target is behaving honorably.
Right. When the target. Yes, sorry, I said when the target is behaving honorably. If you have an honor of -10 to -19, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to intimidate checks. So there are, in other words, small mechanical effects based on your honor, and different items that could occur in the course of an adventure session or 2 or 3 or a whole campaign arc affect your honor score.
Yep.
If I could mash this together with reputation, or I won't say if they had mashed this together with reputation, I would be much happier, because I feel like these 2 things should be integrated in a campaign. Look, if the DM is going to bother to keep lists of whether you acquired property, completed a great deed, healed someone, gave a valuable gift to an NPC, or removed a curse from someone, or refused a contest, or overindulged in food or drink, or was convicted of a crime. Like, if you're going to keep track of all of those things and do the little piddly math to add or subtract from their honor score,
right?
Then you might as well also have a reputation following them around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. I hear you. And, we're also about to get to a whole other honor system.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So that's 3 honor systems in a row from a certain point of view. But I don't know. Here again, this one in particular, but also reputation to a certain extent, it just reads to me as this would be great in a video game. We're not playing a video game.
So actually that's a very interesting you say that, because here's where I'm going with this in terms of my own DMing. I could keep track of this stuff, right?
Sure.
But I'm not going to tell the PC they have a certain honor score.
Sure.
Right? I'm going to use this information to keep track of the honor of the entire party.
Yeah.
And when they go somewhere, and I mean, I'll keep track of the individuals too, but when they go somewhere, how they are received in that new area, or how they are received by that new NPC, that's when my knowledge as the DM of their honor score comes into play. Are they likely to be trusted or not? That's going to make a big difference to how the NPC deals with them.
Yeah. And
That's where the honor score shines. But of course, that's not what this is as written.
no, I agree with you. I like I would be much happier with this system if it were explicitly party wide, and really focused on group reputation and that kind of thing, because communicating uh, NPC reaction to two different extremes of PC in a group is doable. It's just, I don't know. I really like the idea of tracking party stats so that everyone collectively is looking at one shared party sheet and one shared like stat pool or something
Mm-hmm.
for this thing they build together. Um, it was
And that
something I really
also
liked.
actually allows them to use peer pressure,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. It's something I really liked in Warhammer Fantasy Third Edition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the only Warhammer Fantasy I've played. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
other games have done that kind of shared asset thing too in a bunch of different ways. It's a neat thing when you see it done well, and
Yeah.
this could factor into that reputation much more than honor, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, um, then you get freeform honor, which uh, is really sort of, you're divided into 5 basic categories: honorless and trustworthy, honorable in action, honorable in thought, honorable in soul, with benefits derived therefrom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then further, +1 and +2 benefits um, based on it's just potential benefits of honor. It's not really even laid out. Um,
And they also, this is the point where they mention, hey, by the way, if you happen to use the reputation score from the previous portion here of this chapter, you can use this sort of more broad stroke honorable in thought, honorable in soul, et cetera, to help the NPCs and the commoners determine, right, whether that person's reputation makes them honorable or dishonorable, that sort. It basically uses one sentence to tell you, hey, by the way, you might want to integrate this, which is
yeah,
what I had said just a few minutes ago.
right.
But
And I've played a campaign where you know individual character honor was one of the most important things in the game. That game is Pendragon. Um, and
and
also,
that's the conceit at the beginning, and everybody knows it though.
yeah, for sure. And I also played the Rokugan third ed D&D rules.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things that we do have to say about this is that this system is closely connected to the one in the 3.0 Oriental Adventures, which has just recently been uh, read and studied in depth by Dungeons and Asians for how problematic it is. And honor rules were one of the things they called out as super problematic. So the Bushido section in here is, touching on that same thing. But at least it's not saying that honor rules qua honor rules are
Mm-hmm.
an Asian thing.
Right.
Um, it's talking about how you could also apply those to the Code of the Night Protector, and this one makes my head hurt a lot. Using these honor rules for Omerta is
Mm-hmm.
specifically wrong in so many ways. Um, then the Paladin's Code, um, don't tread on me. I have a really hard time applying this to American colonialism. It really breaks my brain, but that seems to be the reference here. Um,
Yeah.
and then the Thieves Code, which is a more honorable omerta, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, like trying to even talk about all of those in the same dynamic of honor is a really strange idea.
The one thing I like about this section is that it's attributing these to a family honor, which means it's trying to get you to realize that when it's talking about family honor, yes, it could be talking about your actual family,
Yeah,
but also it could be talking about your family that you created. If you're a thief and you belong to a thieves guild, that thieves guild is now your family. If you're a paladin, you're taking a paladin code, and every paladin in your sect knows what that code is, and therefore your family, because you all know that you won't break that code.
Sure.
And so I like that part of it. I do want to call out something that really irks me, though. Not about the mechanics per se, but it says, in the Hero Builder's Guidebook, there are 5 tables in the section entitled Creating Your Personal History that have information useful in a mechanical honor system. And then it tells you what the tables are. I mean, okay, great call out, but don't tell me I got to buy another product, right? Like I hate that. That's a pet peeve of mine. I know it's totally a me thing, but I probably should try to look at it as, hey, that's great information to have if I ever want to get that book. But like, don't tell me that this system would be so much better if I bought this other thing and had those 5 tables.
Yeah, Sam. In the business, we call this an upsell.
Yeah, I know.
Upsell.
I do not want to supersize my fries. Thank you.
You can supersize your bookshelf, my guy.
I already did. Have you seen it? But yeah, so to round up the honor part, once again, I feel very much about this similar way that I feel to the reputation. This is something in my mind, for the DM to do in the background if you want it to be seamless. If you want it to be a mechanical thing where the PCs are playing to it, then everything has to be on the table and they have to know exactly how they're going to gain and lose that honor. And you need to integrate it into your game in a way that makes it still remain fun and not just like a new accounting mechanism. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, sometimes my mind is blown about how much accounting systems we have in here when everybody just ignores encumbrance because it's too much of a pain to do the accounting for that. And every other subsystem we explore and introduce has just as much accounting to it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
This is actually another thing that pretty specifically comes from the Rokugan section of Oriental Adventures. The first set of actual mechanics we see here when you get to taint absorbing items is just how Jade works in Rokugan. Mm-hmm. In Oriental Adventures, and they imagine the existence of a detect taint spell, which yep, you're gonna make me keep saying it. That's just what's happening.
That's why I'm very quiet in this section of the review.
but how to stay safe from taint. I mean, that's yep. Anyway, it's about mystical corruption. Mm-hmm. And a progressive mystical corruption, and there's a lot of sort of room to tweak this into something that is more about the dark powers of Ravenloft. Mm-hmm. But that's not really what this is setting out to do. This is much more the sort of mutagenic corruption of the Shadowlands in Rokugan. Mm-hmm. And that includes all of the stuff about cleansing taint and how you can never completely get rid of it outside of Greater Restoration, which is sort of an odd choice, but it's fine. Just because it's not that high level compared to other spells that are on the list here.
Right. I mean, but this has some serious, so the effects that you suffer from having any amount of taint can be. So, well, let me put it this way: a tainted character experiences constitution and wisdom penalties in a variety of ways, from mild nausea, joint pain, or disorientation to rotting flesh, severe skeletal warping, and irresistible murderous urges. So, you've got this list of effects, of tainted effects, that literally does start with occasional nausea or vomiting, goes through swelling eyelids and obscured vision, being phlegmy and having a cough, to having, thickened skin that cracks and turns leathery, up through bones start to warp, Your gums swell and bleed and rot away from your teeth. You hear voices of evil spirits. You have paranoia. That's the moderate. And then severe is, the flesh of your nose rots away, leaving your skull open. The lungs get eaten away from the inside, so you have wet, labored, and painful breathing.
Well, if
I
that
mean,
first one happens, I have a solution for you. You should get a white piece of cloth, make a half mask out of it, and go live in the Paris Opera House as God intended.
there you go. Yes, yes, yes. You should do that and learn to sing because there's going to be a woman that falls in love with you. Anyway,
Gerard Butler certainly didn't.
that's true.
I think that one's optional.
I think so. Yes, that part's
optional.
optional. Yes,
But for Michael Crawford, yes, you can probably sing by this point.
So the thing is that you lose your constitution score goes down, and when it gets to 0, you die, and then 1d6 hours later you rise as a hideous evil creature under the control of the DM, and then it gives this little table that says what you will rise as. And it depends on what level you were when you died. But the choices are Ghoul, Ghast, Wraith, or Bodak. So, that's real pleasant. Great way to lose your character there to become a DM PC.
Hey,
of a sort.
I don't actually hate the idea of this for some campaigns. Mm-hmm. You should not use D&D rules to run Warhammer. That's insane. But if you were, this represents Warhammer Chaos pretty well, right?
Sure.
Where you bleed rats, whatever.
Right.
This works for plenty of different kinds of supernatural evil games, and if that's what you want, the mathiness of this is actually less bad. Hanging it on con, I wouldn't do. I don't think that's actually desirable in even the medium term. But other than that, this is fine. I don't.
I'll be honest. The mechanics of it are much less onerous feeling to me than the honor and reputation systems we just talked about.
Well, yeah, they're not giant tables of numbers, so.
But this, even the way it's explained and described, sort of gives a lot of leeway for how it plays out in the campaign, even if it has some devastating, severe effects. And that, to me, leads to the situation where, as long as the expectation that this could occur because this is a part of the world or the setting, then hey, go with it, right? This is a fine set of guidelines, and it offers also a way to get rid of the taint, although, as you said, you can't really ever get rid of it 100%.
Yeah. Without, for some reason, greater restoration. That, again, is a weird choice.
Yeah.
But then there are prestige classes for the tainted, and of course there are. Mostly you want NPCs to take these because these are pretty tedious for a PC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel like we have a lot to contribute by deep diving into them.
No. They are almost exactly what you would expect if you thought about a sorcerer that had a high taint score and a warrior that had a high taint score.
Yep. And those are the only two kinds it comes in. Yep. Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And
whatever.
It's fine. Then we get into the super problematic stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. That then the section we just want to skip.
So it's the sanity section, and honestly, the sanity rules are not great, not really ever. This is really very much trying to be Call of Cthulhu, the whole way that sanity checks and sanity loss work is very, very cribbed from Call of Cthulhu, and that just feels horribly lazy to me, and it makes me sort of mad.
So let me stop you there and ask you, well, what do you think of the sanity rules in Call of Cthulhu?
So I haven't played a lot of Call of Cthulhu, but I listened to a bunch of Call of Cthulhu podcasts. I'm a big fan of how we roll, and so that's my main contact with those rules. They seem mostly okay. They're mostly playing like ongoing characters and not one shots in general,
Mm-hmm.
and so like the whole nature of the sanity score as a death spiral among your various death spirals uh, does suit what Call of Cthulhu wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not less problematic. I'm not trying to assert that it is not problematic as anything, but like, you see a horrible thing and suffer from mental illness is not going to escape the problematic space. It's just not going to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm also not the person to tell you that you can't like problematic things. I like plenty of
Right.
problematic things.
Mm-hmm.
Just should you publish it? Maybe.
Yeah.
Fine.
I mean,
Whatever.
so my thing is, for some reason that I have not probably adequately explored, I find that having sanity mechanics in a game like Call of Cthulhu is perfectly fine with me. I don't, I mean, I know that on the logical basis, just understanding problematic things and the state of the world and knowing the history of, for example, someone like H.P. Lovecraft, and also knowing about other types of writers like, Ashcroft and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I understand why there's a mechanic called sanity, to track your sanity and your power and all that kind of stuff in Call of Cthulhu. And for some reason, in that system, it works. And you know, I think it's probably okay with me in my brain logically. And I say that it works because I feel like the characters in Call of Cthulhu are supposed to be, quote, regular people in the world in whatever time era you're playing in, usually,
Sure.
traditionally 20s, 30s, right?
Yep.
And those regular people, when they are exposed to things that are just absolutely horrific, their brain has not been acclimated to being able to handle a 24-hour onslaught of horribleness. And so they can go insane. Now, I feel like for some reason, like, that feels very appropriate to me, but I understand from the mental health perspective why that is so extremely problematic. And I'm not lessening that at all. I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying if I just compare Call of Cthulhu to D&D, like, for some reason it feels like it fits in Call of Cthulhu, and I'm better able to just say, well, that kind of makes sense in a more philosophical level. And so I excuse it. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying that in my mind, I understand it more. Whereas in D&D, I mean, look, the first time a dwarf goes out and fights ghouls in a mine, they should be having to make a sanity check, because ghouls are absolutely horrific beings. Anything undead should make any living creature take pause. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't really fit in D&D with me, because we
Yep.
don't do a sanity check for the sort of run of the mill everyday horrors that a D&D PC would come into contact with.
Right. And like, I have no problem with including cosmic horror as a theme in D&D. I just don't think that D&D is about death spiral mechanics
Mm-hmm.
and like counting down until your character is no longer playable. That is a really big departure from what D&D wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, like,
Whereas in Call of Cthulhu, that is exactly what Call of Cthulhu wants to do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At minimum, it is counting down to the next time you need to go spend a bunch of downtime in the psych ward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
we can now have a scene about the horror of a 1920s or 1930s psych ward.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, that's a part of that narrative too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And is again just something that doesn't suit the D&D milieu.
Right. And now Sam Dillon could go off on why the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest contains more horror than so many actual horror movies, but I won't because we don't have time. So let's move on.
I've only seen pieces of the movie, but I read the book and hard agree.
Yeah. It's a horror story.
I mean, that was the point.
Yeah.
Very, very
I know. But I'm just, it's one of those movies that is lauded as, oh, it's such a great, piece of film. Yeah, sure.
I mean,
The horror story. I'm sorry, it is.
yeah, those things can coexist.
Sure. Yeah. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that tends to be the first place everybody goes.
Yeah.
The first place I go is that is a depiction of a horror film.
Yep.
That right there is a depiction of a life where a person is tortured.
Yep. No argument. So also the fact that sanity is a 100 point scale in D&D is just, you are D&D. You are not a D100 system.
Right.
Get it right or pay the price.
Yeah.
But I do really like the forbidden knowledge sidebar, just in principle, because I like having some kind of mechanic that separates forbidden knowledge from conventional knowledge. This is not something I could bring forward into 5e, and I haven't found a way that I want to have that work in 5e, because frankly, being a warlock should make you better at, the knowledge that is forbidden and unconventional.
Right.
As compared to a wizard who might or might not be good at it.
Yeah. Have you gotten to the part in my D&D brief game where they find the Book of Proofs?
So I have episode 12 queued up right now. So no.
Okay. I won't spoil anything, but in my setting, there are books that are basically forbidden knowledge, but the way that so far that the players have discovered that they work is the knowledge is there. It's not really forbidden. It's just that it's hard to get to, and it's hard to translate, and it's hard to interpret.
Yeah.
But it's there. But it could lead to disaster, but not in a sanity way. So the reason I bring this up is because I do also like the idea that there is forbidden knowledge, but I think there's a way to do it in 5th edition that makes it so that I could go the direction that you're talking about, where, a warlock, would possibly have, a better access to some of that forbidden knowledge, just because, their existence depends upon making a deal with a powerful patron.
Yep.
And so that matters. That should matter. And so, I feel like that's a good way to do it in 5th edition. I don't know that I would port in any of the other of these ideas into 5th edition.
Reading table 611, random indefinite insanity, just makes me really unhappy.
Yeah.
I would like it if that table had not been written. Some of the other stuff, doesn't seem to me as much like things I just see in people I know and care about. But oh man, just pass on this. Anyway, we can move on. We've already given this more than I wanted to give it, more than either of us wanted to give it.
Well, I do want to call out 5th edition, though, because in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there are madness rules.
Uh-huh.
And
I know they're there and haven't looked at them in a couple of years.
So it says, in a typical campaign, characters are not driven mad by the horrors they face. But sometimes the stress of being an adventurer can be too much to bear. So the reason that I am familiar with these rules is because if you cast, let's see, my warlock has, what's the spell that lets you talk to?
Contact Other Plane?
Yes, Contact Other Plane. When you fail your intelligence check, you go mad.
Sure.
And, so in 5th edition, there are 3 different types of madness effects. There are short-term madness, long-term madness, and indefinite madness. Short-term lasts for minutes, 1 to 10. Long-term lasts for hours, 10 times 10 hours, 1d10 times 10 hours. And indefinite, of course, is basically a new permanent character flaw, depending
Yep.
on how your DM wants to adjudicate that. And but the madnesses are I don't even want to say any examples of these madnesses, because when you look at the indefinite madness table, it's all, everything that's on that table is a quote, because it's something that the character would express to people.
Right. It's intended to be the quote for your new flaw, such
Right.
that you gain inspiration for playing your flaw.
Mm-hmm. Just like in the initial ideals, bonds, and flaws, it
Right.
always states it as from that person's point of view. Oh, I value my freedom, so I'm whatever, or I'm very trustworthy, and I'm loyal to my every friend, and that sort of thing. Like, it's written from the sort of first person. I'm doing this. This is my, and this indefinite madness table writes it in that same format,
Yep.
except it's a statement that would be made by a mad person.
Right.
And I got to tell you, some of these are things that I've heard people in my family express,
Yep.
and that's real hard.
I feel that. I know some people who wouldn't admit to believing some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
but they certainly live that belief.
Mm-hmm. And then and even the long term madness. The character experiences uncontrollable tremors or tics, which imposes a disadvantage. Blah blah blah. Like, hello, disability,
Yeah.
right? Like, like, really, that's I just, and there's some things about memory and amnesia and aphasia, the inability to
Right.
speak.
Yep.
Even the short term madness is, and one of them is you become incapacitated and spend the duration of the madness. Remember, it's 1d10 minutes, screaming, laughing, or weeping. Like, look, I'm not saying these things aren't appropriate to be put in a category that would be called madness, or an exhibited behavior by someone who has a break, right?
Yep.
But I don't know if I want this in my D&D game.
Yeah. I know that I don't. I would not give a player a hard time necessarily for, like, choosing of their own volition and without really referencing this chapter to have that be their character's negative reaction to something that happened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your character goes kind of catatonic because of something that happened. I'm not gonna be the person to tell you you're doing it wrong. Also, because I'm like, you're at my table, you're not in public,
Right.
right? If we get it kind of wrong, we're probably still okay. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it didn't need to be recommended as a rule, is I think where we are.
Well, and that's exactly where I was going. Was I'm okay that it's an optional rule. Like, I understand some people, it's okay for them to have that in their game, and I'm not saying anybody's having bad, wrong fun. I'm not doing that. But the fact that um, when you cast a spell, it's actually prescribed. You got to make a DC 15, and that's a DC 15 intelligence saving throw. Okay.
Right.
That's not a low number. I mean, I know that doesn't feel like a super high number, but that's not a low number. It says, on a failure, you take 6d6 psychic damage and are insane until you finish a long rest. While insane, you can't take actions, you cannot understand what other creatures say, you can't read, and you speak only in gibberish. Okay, so it doesn't tell you that you should go to the DMG and roll on a short-term madness table, okay? But it describes that you're speaking in gibberish, you can't read, you can't understand what other people are saying. I don't know. I just that's I know that there's probably some people out there saying that I probably sound like a snowflake for that, and
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that. You want to think I'm a snowflake, whatever. I don't care. But um, when you have people in your family that you're close to that have a disordered mind, or a chemical imbalance, or something that could be called mad, some of this stuff, Do you want it in your game? I think it's appropriate to maybe discuss it beforehand.
Yep.
Now, in my game, the character, the player of the character told me they were going to cast this spell.
Sure.
So I knew, and he knew what the consequences could be if he failed that. And so we knew ahead of time and handled it appropriately.
Yeah. And looking for different consequences for contact other plane is not outside of anyone's reach.
Sure.
As just some on-the-fly design. Like, unless someone's casting contact other plane and it's your first session as a GM, don't do this, by the way. You need to start at lower levels and just learn the deal.
Right.
But yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, so basically all I'm saying is appreciate that different players have different real life lived experiences with certain forms of what would be called insanity. And, you need to respect the players at your table. So don't spring something like this on them without a conversation first.
I mean, really don't use any rules module just sort of as a bait and switch. That's not what we're here to do.
Right.
Everyone needs to know the ground rules going in, and that's really got to be one of them. I have this rules module turned on is super baseline, or even, hey, I saw this rules module, I'd like to consider using it. We're good. Or not, but have that conversation. This isn't revolutionary stuff to say people should have a basic ability to understand the rules of the game they're playing. Like, this isn't first edition D&D where the DMG was the Forbidden Tome and it held all the secret knowledge of the masters of the world that live in Tibet to pull the strings of reality. I don't know. Like, we're trying to be on a much more even playing field in terms of just what can be understood. Man, this section just keeps going. I'm not reading this anyway.
It does this horrible thing where it gives this list of, and I'm not going to read any, but it gives this list of mental disorders, and it's like and phobias, right? And it's sort of like somebody just wanted to show off that they know the names of all these obscure phobias.
Accurate.
Right?
Yep. I mean, been there. I love long words, and these are great ones.
I mean, look, you're talking to a guy who loves reading about what you call the different parts of a castle. Okay, I get it. Right?
Same.
And everybody always makes fun of Gygax for loving pole arms and how he knew all the different, the different types of pole arms. Hey, you know what? Whatever, man. Like, I'm totally okay with that. I know a lot of the different pole arms too. Like, I'm not, but like, this is, this feels, excessive.
I think we might have previously done 5 minutes on the coolest word you learned from Gary Gygax. Mine was necropolis.
Oh, I don't even know. I would have to I'd have to open the DMG or the 1E player's handbook and look for like the first word that I didn't know what it was and had to look it up.
Fair.
Which I'm not going to do right now because we're already over time.
Weird, right?
That could be a whole other episode. Then there's one final. Is it one final or there are two? Nope, there's two final sections. Oh man, there's a whole lot in this chapter. So the next section after the insanity stuff is test-based prerequisites.
Good. So Sam, I have one piece of bad news. We could seriously do an hour on this section. I have feelings on this. This is yeah. Oh my god.
Okay. Is this going to be a 2-part episode?
It's a danger. Like, I wish I was kidding. Something I've talked about a fair amount in Harbinger of Doom. But in the LARP communities that I learned gaming from, on-camera tests, like by on-camera I mean in the course of actual play when you're in as your character, that's a big deal. They're called circle tests in that gaming community, and if you're any kind of spellcaster in those campaigns, for the most part you need to go through some kind of in-game test to advance. And sometimes this extends to other character types. Like if you belong to a particular martial tradition, you might need to undergo a circle test to advance. And there's a lot of design conversation around that, and we've largely veered away from using it, and that's got a lot of bad along with the good. The good is that you're not waiting for one event to a year of events or more to be able to use the new thing you bought, right? Um,
Right.
and that really sucks, and everyone hates it. On the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, you're not getting a cool personal scene where your own like beliefs and abilities are tested. You don't get a cool puzzle or a cool like moral dilemma or whatever, or just you're a cool Hellgrinder fight where the villain cares about messing with you personally, and man, that can feel really good
Yeah.
to be the star and
Mm-hmm.
to make it about whether or not you do the evil thing. And there's a lot there, and it's really hard to do in D&D because the increase of XP is inexorable, and you don't want to go have to take levels in a different class just so your XP can be doing something. If you had actual retraining rules that were worth anything in third ed, than saying, well, you're advancing as a fighter, but you want that fighter-based prestige class that I haven't gotten to testing you for yet. Just buy another level of fighter, and we'll flip it over to your new prestige class when we get there in the plot.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fine. It's just, unfortunately, no, it's a nightmare to respend classes because of skill points and feats and so on, and just getting all the little details and ability score adjustments like that all winds up being a nightmare. But personal scenes in tabletop, like where there's just one or two characters and the rest of the party are engaged listeners,
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that D&D mostly teaches.
Right.
But
Or is good at. Right.
uh, okay, I'm going to disagree about good at. Because I've had some really good results with it just recently in my birthright campaign.
Okay.
The players have been really engaged listeners, and because we're playing online, there's a really great Discord byplay in the text chat while
Mm-hmm.
the scene is still going on, and some of it is snark, and some of it is talking about, hey, that's a really cool thing that is going on. I'm really into what that reveals about the world and the conflict that just got set up and all that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. But that's why I say mostly, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
mostly good
right. And
because when you don't train a certain type of behavior into the milieu of playing the game, then most players aren't going to be used to it, and so they're not going to do it well.
yeah, for sure. And I agree that D&D just hasn't ever taught it. It isn't common to see it taught in any game. Um, like we just finished playing Headspace with Eric Paquette and Jared and Rabbit and Kevin Culp, and that game completely depends on its whole dynamic of solo scene that is never a solo scene. That's it. That's the pitch. Uh, because much like Sense8 or like in Leverage, how they're all on earbuds, right? Uh, you can always communicate with the other characters, and they can always kind of engage in scenes they aren't personally present for, um,
Right.
and that can be a great dynamic. Well, D&D doesn't mostly do that, but
Mhm.
it can work really well if you have taught players what it is like to be an engaged audience member for another player. So, having said all that, a whole test scene is a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask. So, you want to write a test that incorporates the other players. Okay, so now your next problem is I need a test for each player's cool thing at around 5th to 7th level as they pick up their prestige class. That's horrible. Well, what if I combine them? Well, thematically combining them is a much harder writing task,
Sure.
right? And that's been a major problem in LARPing that has been solved in various ways of combining tests or like quasi-retroactively declaring, "Hey, that cool thing you did, that was your test," right?
Okay.
And that's regarded as legit because there was a critical emotional moment, and you were at the center of the thing. Well, now you can trip over to having the rest of your powers. It's fine. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I have a lot of feelings about it.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. I feel like this is the type of thing that is such a could be such a great idea. Just
Yep.
like even the the examples that they give for the different prestige class tests are interesting from a certain perspective, right? And but as you said, the problem is then you're you're focusing one PC,
Yep.
and it's really hard to make that work well for a lot of people. I'll say, I won't say for everybody, because I think there are plenty of tables where if a one character or player has the spotlight, the others are still engaged. They're not just suddenly off, talking about whatever.
Right.
But
And that is one of the better lessons that anyone can take from Critical Role, for example.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
Right, yeah.
and it's something I felt like you have handled really well in D&D Brief.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I like in the episode I just listened to, Konos just got a lot of spotlight time,
Mhm,
right? Leading up to them going to the Palace of Mud.
right.
Um, and my impression at the time was that it the scene had enough stakes and such that the player stayed pretty focused and interested in what he learned and what happened to him. And similarly, the party cleric had a bunch of essentially solo scenes with uh, her temple back in the starting city,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. I try,
Yeah, for sure.
and I won't claim to be an expert or claim to do that very well for a lot of games. I happen to those players are really just really well engaged people, so it's a lot easier for me to do it, and they go with it. If you have players that aren't there yet, or just aren't naturally prone to being there, it's a lot harder to manage. It's one of the trials of being a DM. Actually, I think
Yeah.
for any system, right, is keeping the entire table engaged at all times.
Yep. For sure.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so anything else to say about the the prestige class tests?
No. I mean, it extends to feat tests also. Um,
Yeah.
it's some of them are just sort of very plain ideas. It's fine. Whatever. I don't
I mean,
care.
some of these things are great ideas if you're going to have a few one-on-one sessions with one PC with a
Right.
DM,
And if
right?
you can do that, that's great. My schedule does not mostly permit that. So a big shift to online play, creates possibilities that are hitherto unexplored.
Mhm. Sure.
But yeah, I think we can move on.
So the next section is level independent XP awards.
Sure. This is just the 5e system mostly.
It really is.
That's
I
fine.
mean, whatever. It's fine. It's an alternate way to deal with some XP. I'm fine with it.
I hate XP systems. Um, like the XP I hand out is very, the points are all made up. I'm gonna quote a number that's gonna sound satisfying based on what I've done in previous sessions and how intense the like plot advancement and conflict was this time. So I don't sit down and add up monsters and come up with numbers. That's very boring, and I don't have the brain space to do it at the end of a session or at any other time. So this this section is non-existent to me, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't shy away from XP systems. I don't. I mean, you know me, right? I'm Mister. Hey, gold for XP. I'm totally okay with that.
Sure.
Uh, and I think that inculcates a certain type of game and a certain type of style of play, and I'm okay with that because I know that, and I know the consequences it could have. And I don't know. I don't really have feelings one way or the other about this particular system that they've presented here. It's just an alternative way to sort of think about things, and I'm okay with that. Whatever. I'm not. I think in 5e, if we try to take this and put it in 5e, or try to take sort of what's happening here and think about 5e, 5e really does um, favor the milestone kind of approach, where
Yep.
it's not so much about the amount of XP, it's about what did you do, and is that enough to level up?
Yep.
And pretty much every adventure is written that way, with maybe the exception of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And maybe with the exception of a couple of the early ones where they still were stating, the XP, they should have this much XP at the end, or you could just level them up.
Well, right. And in Horde of the Dragon Queen, you definitely see if they complete this side quest, if they save this NPC, for each NPC they save, kind of nickeling and diming that. I remember seeing that in just tons of low-level adventures over the years, and never, ever seeing it above about third level.
Mm-hmm. Because by the time you get to the sort of mid levels, it's not. Yeah, nah. I mean, we could talk about. We've got whole episodes on this.
Right.
It's just a style of play, and I think Fifth Edition really supports milestone play, where the play is about the story, and yes, it's about what you defeated and what challenges you faced, but it's not about whether the beholder was worth 29,000 XP or 30,000 XP, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so that's where that line is, and whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that leads us to the very last portion of this book, which is the afterword.
Yep. And let's say some paragraphs that might constitute guidance on the Eternal Champion. Sure. Like, if you need guidance on how to play the Eternal Champion, I would suggest that maybe just reading a synopsis of the stories would probably get you there. That's fine. Like, I have nothing against that idea. I also just watched The Old Guard, and so my personal headcanon is that Andy grows up to become Furiosa.
Nice.
Because you can't prove to me that Furiosa is not that old, because we don't know how long ago it was. You know what? I'm off topic.
So this afterword, all it's really doing is saying, if you want to use many of the variants in this book, you might need to think about what type of campaign you're going to run, and here are some ideas of campaigns that would be particularly good frameworks to use a large portion of this book. And so they talk about having a campaign where there's a world-spanning organization, and the PCs have access to a base, a home base, and then also they can go to different places. And it gives some examples of organizations. There's a shifting worlds suggestion. There's the Eternal Champion. It's really just a few paragraphs on here's how to make this work. Here's how this book helps you run that type of campaign.
Yep.
And then that's followed by a checklist, set of pages of checklists that allow you to determine which types of rules from this book you're going to use. So it's literally a place where you can put a check next to, which classes or races or which skill system variant or which adventuring variant, from each chapter that you're going to use,
Yep.
so that you can presumably, give that to your players and say, hey, we're playing a campaign. Here are the variants that we're using.
And I also like that they include the Dungeon Master's Guide variants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Anyway, that's going to round out the book for us, I
And
think.
that's the end. We made it to the end of this book.
I hope you all have enjoyed listening to us deep dive in this book and try to provide some personal context on how we engage with all the stuff in here. We could have practically read this thing on air in the amount of time that we spent talking about it, but I like to think that the thing we're bringing to the table is our personal experience and uh, our sense of camaraderie. Because getting to talk to Sam about it is way more interesting than me bloviating on my own. If you want to hear that, I have a blog, guys.
I tend to think that the value that I hope we are providing, at least in part, in this podcast, is just the idea of we're well versed enough in different styles of play from different editions and also from different games, just completely different games, not just D&D, that we can bring that perspective into reading a book that is an older edition and talk about how that probably affected the latest, the current edition, or even how systems from other games have been brought into D&D over the years. There was a lot of talk when 5th edition came out about, oh, well, the inspiration mechanic, that's really just stealing from these other, games over here, and, oh, whatever. And it's sort of like, well, is it stealing, or is that just how RPGs are? That this is how we do RPGs. We take good ideas from various different sources and we integrate them into the current edition if we think they work. And really, this book that we just took a deep dive into is really a collection of ideas, some that come from just the designer's brains that are only working on D&D and playing D&D, and some that come from other games because some of the designers play other games, and some that come from design aspects that people left on the cutting room floor at one point, but they thought, hey, it might be cool to give people this option, though. Let's put it in there. And then when you look at that and you look at 5th edition, how it is now, there's quite a few ideas in this particular book that trace almost directly to 5th edition. It's pretty amazing, actually, when you think about it that way.
Well, and I mean, I think I've mentioned on air previously, if not in this episode, that a lot of things like the taint rules also show up in Heroes of Horror, and
Right.
maybe also Libris Mortis. So there's some other 3rd edition books that are really touching on that, and the DMG2 is going to recapitulate some of the reputation stuff, and it's going to add organization level rules that aren't found here but aren't irrelevant to the sort of function that they're trying to communicate here.
It's kind of interesting to think about it that way, because what that means is this was sort of a view into what they were already designing for the game anyway, right?
Yep.
And that actually kind of, that if we take that and you look at game design in that way, and you think about how we have these Unearthed Arcana articles and playtest documents still for 5th edition, and how that's giving us an eye into, hey, there's a design process going on here. And they're no longer just doing the design work in a little bubble. They're actually putting it out there and getting feedback on it. I mean, that's a pretty big evolution in itself.
Yep. One of the things about this book is that the titles are used for something else aside. It is so hard to imagine WotC as we see it now ever releasing essentially their scrapbook and just saying, like, we have no idea if you really even want this. We don't know if there's a market for this, because I refuse to believe that 2004 WotC knew to any degree of confidence that this book was going to do anything. And I don't know if it did do numbers or not. I really, really doubt it. But
Yeah.
being a little tight-lipped on their sales is always been their way.
But also, you got to think back then it was also the very, I mean, relatively speaking, early days of the internet.
Oh, for sure.
In
Yeah,
terms of the gaming community specifically, right?
Yep.
So, I mean,
I mean,
there's
Ian World was already long in the tooth because they had made their bones on 3.0, and this is a whole half edition later. I mean, my God.
yeah. But I'm just saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's true. You're making, Eric, no, okay, fine. But the Ian World aside, like at the same time, the average D&D player didn't have access to the plethora of tools and resources and just flat out blogs that we have now.
Oh, for sure.
So Wizards of the Coast putting out a book like this back in 2004, that's like them putting out Xanathar's Guide, right?
Yeah, in a very real way.
So let's wrap this up. Do you have any parting thoughts for the listeners?
Oh boy, I really hope you guys have enjoyed what we've tried to do here. It's been an interesting journey through this book, and we'll probably do other sort of single book deep dives again in the future. What are we doing next, Sam?
If you, listener, if you want to put in your 2 cents about what you think we should talk about, you can email us at dndbrief@gmail.com. That's dndebrief@gmail.com.
And you should tell us really soon, because we record fairly regularly.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it might be time to say goodbye.
All right.